don't think that there is much doubt here that this is your best album so far, and you must get that warm glow inside when you read some of the reviews, and you pick out words like sensational solos, gigantic, gargantuan riffs, vibrant, finely crafted songs. It's not easy to exceed expectations, but you've done that, obviously.
Well, I mean, that's kind of you. I hope that that people enjoy it. That's really what it's about. Is people enjoy the stuff, and we're just trying to, make music that we like, that is in line with this formation of people in the band at the moment, and we feel like this album, to be honest, was a little bit harder to make than the last one. We had some some trials and tribulations, basically somewhat because we were working from home a lot, and there's distractions when you're at home. Last album we got to record in south of France, and it was like a vacation, but you were focused on work 100%. And so it was, some challenging things happening, but we got the record together at the last moment, and hopefully, we'll keep getting good reviews. Hopefully we're getting the charts a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's be honest, it does deserve it. Now, this album, the second one, following on from Holy Ground in, 18 months, but you were actually working on this, so I read, in 2020, even prior to the release of Holy Ground.
Yes, so during that time, it was, in Los Angeles, as probably it was for you, it was locked down, and you really were unsure, didn't really feel comfortable about going out anywhere, really. I mean, maybe for a walk or something, but, trying to stay away from, and everything was shut mostly except for the grocery and marketplace. But I had kids at home. I was taking care of them, and I was doing some renovations on my house, so that kept me busy. And Glenn was just basically by himself. He didn't have anything to do, so he started. He called me and goes, "Hey, I got a couple of ideas I would love to work with you on." So we got together. I brought my portable rig and started going to his house every day, and we took some of his ideas and arranged them and recorded them and did some really good demos. We, in the end, had about 10 songs, and then we stopped because we wanted to go on tour to support Holy Ground. So we had these really great demos in the can, and we didn't plan on doing the album Radiance, but what happened is we had another tour cancellation in February, and then that we decided let's cherry pick the songs that we like. In my estimation, about half of the songs on the album are from those 2020 sessions, and then we wrote another 5 or 6 songs to fill in and make it a solid. There's no filler. We wanted to make a solid album.
Yeah, it's Glenn's second album, and you said previously you didn't want to just go and repeat yourself on this album. You wanted to break some new ground, but it's easier said than done, isn't it? How did you manage to avoid just following up Holy Ground with another album that sounded like Holy Ground?
Well, I'm not sure if we were successful or not, but we did our best. We wanted to do, I think there's a couple of tracks where Glenn dove into his Sabbath Iommi roots, like the riff on Radiance or the riff on Cascade. That's a bit different than what we had done maybe on the last album. Overall, I wanted some I wanted some melodic things, but that were heavy, and hopefully we got some of that. Glenn's lyrics are always he writes about, he'll tell you, he writes about the human condition, and it's really interesting, because you can his lyrics really leave it open for discussion about what it's about. There is a literal meaning about a song like "Born to Fly," but that's not what Glenn's writing about. Glenn's writing about something much deeper than that, which is cool, you know. So this double entendre. But to answer your question more directly, we just found some riffs and some music that we thought was the next step for the Dead Daisies, and I think another thing that really lifts this album, and it needs to be mentioned, is Brian Tichy on drums. He's just incredible. He's so musical, and I'll tell you more about him if you want me to.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. After you reconvened after Christmas, and you welcome back an old friend, and I think you've said in the past that he's your favourite drummer, Brian Tichy. Back for another spell, you worked with him on many occasions. You worked with him on Forevermore as well. But this is where you first started, wasn't it? Because I remember you talking about hearing the Dead Daisies version of Midnight Moses, the old Alex Harvey track when John Corabi was there. And that was when you initially came into the band.
Well, that's how I found out about the band. I came in after that. They were a solid lineup at that time with Richard Fortus and Dizzy from Guns N' Roses. And Brian was in the band. And I forget... I think it was Marco told me that, oh yeah, I got this thing I'm doing. It's called the Dead Daisies, and I didn't really know about it. And then I heard Brian was doing it, and they had a song, and John Corabi, and I'm like, wait a minute, all these guys are my friends. And I somehow discovered the video on YouTube, and I was blown away. I thought, man, that's so cool. And the story is that John Corabi and I, when we were kids, we knew each other in school, and he played in a band in the New Jersey clubs, and there was a band around town called Dead End Kids, and they used to play Midnight Moses, and it was a really cool thing. And so I was like, basically in my heart, I was clapping for John, like, so cool after all these years. You brought that song out because we were kids, we'd go watch this band play, and it was just amazing. But back to the thing about me getting in the Dead Daisies, it was just after that album, I think Guns N' Roses decided to go back, and it's such a small world because I was working with Glenn Hughes at the time. I had gotten out of Whitesnake and needed to take some time off, and then Glenn called me about a year later and asked me to join him on a little, kind of a trapeze type solo tour. It was just guitar, bass, and drums. And I thought, that sounds fun. And we had a blast. We did a bunch of stuff. And Dead Daisies called me to do a couple gigs with them because Richard was injured, had an injury. And I couldn't do it. I had plans with Glenn in Japan, to go to Japan. And there were 2 shows. And I just, I wasn't going to pull out on him. It would not be cool.
Yeah.
But then they called me later and said, okay, by the way, now you can't tell anybody, but Guns N' Roses is reforming with Slash and all of them, and they're going to take Richard Fortus on second guitar, or dual lead guitar, whatever you call it, and would you like to make a record? And that sounded great to me, and I've been having a blast ever since. And that's, rounding back to Brian, that's how we got Brian back. We said, Brian, we want you to come back. He knows how much I love his playing. And the management said, we want you to come back. We're going to make a brand new album. We want to do it with you, and then we'll tour it. And, come. And he was like, sounds good. So he came back, and he basically, any song that you give him, he makes it a better song. It's just the way he is.
Glenn's talked actually about Radiance, the album, having a very British sound. Was that something that was aimed for, or was it something that was organic and it just became like that?
That's an interesting question, because I think the British part of it, for the most part, is you've got a British vocalist, and I think you've got to you know, you got to give credit for that. It's really, I think if you said that about both albums, it would be correct. But this album, for some reason, Glenn maybe feels that way more. But no, it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been a. I don't. I can't write songs like trying to do something. It's just you do what you do, and you try to make, come up with things that you haven't done before that somehow feel fresh. Or maybe sometimes you'll come up with something and you'll think it's not that great, but someone else will go, "Wow, I really like that. It reminds me of my roots or something." So I can't really I can't really put my finger exactly on it. But if Glenn feels that way, that's cool. I'm not going to disagree with it.
The working relationship that you have with Glenn, he writes all his own lyrics, the melodies, etc. He plays bass as well. How do you ensure that it remains a band collective where everybody's input is appreciated, where you've got somebody who's as creative as he is in so many different departments? There's Yes. It could run away with itself and become the Glenn Hughes band.
Yeah, it could, and sometimes it will naturally try to go there, and we have to remind him that this is this is a collective that's working together, and so if Glenn can get very precious with certain things, and of course he can do it all by himself. Like I said, basically what happened is when he and I got together and worked on those 10 songs, half of those made the album because the other half sounded like Glenn Hughes songs that were for a solo album, and it didn't feel, and that's an honest assessment. So basically, I had my ideas about what songs were the strongest out of those batch that we did, and then there were some songs that Glenn presented that I thought were really good but needed a bit of work, and so I just put my notes down and we basically turned it over to the producer, Ben Gross, and that's the guy that really is he's really the referee, let's say, with Glenn and I. So I basically had my notes, honest notes of what I thought we could make improvements on, and what kind of few songs that I wanted to present that I thought could be good if Glenn liked them, because I respectfully would leave final say about working on a song to Glenn. And the producer came, and basically our notes pretty much aligned. So he kind of maintained it that way. But I would say too, there were a couple songs where it was a little bit difficult for Glenn, because David and I had some melodies for certain songs like Born to Fly and Shine On. In fact, lyrically, the lyric Born to Fly was a chorus melody and lyric that David and I had worked on, and we presented it to Glenn hoping he would like it, and he did. But I think he might have been a little taken aback by, wait a minute, I'm not doing 100% everything.
Does that remind you of the old David Coverdale adage? It's much easier to try doing than it is to deny it.
It is. David's absolutely right, and I would be the first to tell anybody that if there's one thing I've learned is that it's much easier to just try something and give it a shot, and if it doesn't fly, it doesn't fly, or if it's somebody else's idea and you're not really excited about it, but you got to trust if the majority of people say that's really working, then you do. And that's another thing with Brian. Like I could get an honest assessment from him where I knew there was not any. There was no agenda at all with Brian. He just wanted to make each song the best it could be. So when it came to doing guitar parts, I would say, Brian, this is kind of what I was thinking. What do you think? And he'd go, yeah, I'd like that, but what if you did this, or what if, and I like that aspect of working with people. So my point is, of course, you could do it all by yourself, but isn't it more rewarding to do it together as a team?
Yeah, sure,
sure. To me, it is. I mean, you got a guy like Yngwie, which I love Yngwie, but he doesn't want. He's like, why would I want to? You know, did Beethoven call up Bach or Mozart and say, "Hey, I need help with this piece I'm working on"? No, he did it himself. So there's that argument, you know.
Ben Gross produced from start to finish again. This time, as you said, that you were up at the mix room as opposed to south of France. The album's recorded pretty much as live and has that very live feel to it.
Yes. It's, you know, as you can imagine, we would have some demos to start off with, and we'd all sit in the control room and kind of talk through it, and we'd talk about things we might want to change when we go to actually play the song. And Ben Gross we'd all discuss, you know, edits, like, you know, with the demos we might have gone a little long on something or a little short on something. We'd go, why don't we double this up, or why don't we cut that in half? And so Ben had some ideas he wanted us to try, and you know, Glenn and I were really like, we kind of had the demos in our head in certain aspects that we didn't know if it would work or not. We had to trust him. We had to trust Ben. And I think in the end, Ben did a fantastic job. But we discussed those things, go in the studio, play them live, and play through them. By the time we played through each song maybe 4 or 5 times, everybody by that time kind of had their parts figured out, you know, what was working together. We could lay down a track, go in the control room, listen to it, and go, that's working, that's not. And we'd go back out and cut it again. Meanwhile, Brian's making adjustments all the time, very musically, really cool. And finally, you know, after maybe an hour or something, we'd have a track with all the basics on it.
The reaction to the new material has been pretty conclusive, hasn't it? I mean, you can see it in the multitude of videos on YouTube. It's had great reaction.
I had no idea, so I'm happy if that's true, Tim.
It looks like it.
I mean, are you talking about live stuff, or?
Yeah. Stuff where people have obviously been at because you've been playing new material, or what, 4 tracks off the album. I mean, the reaction's great. It sounds fantastic. It's made for live. What I thought was quite unusual here was the first 4 tracks on the album have all been released, one after another.
Yeah, I know. It's I didn't know which songs they would go with first. I think they wanted to go with Radiance because we were trying to dabble. We're trying to keep an open mind with technology and different things. And there's this thing, I don't really know much about it because I don't really have time to maybe I'll figure it out one day, but there's this thing called the metaverse. It's a thing.
It's to do with the video, isn't it? You've recorded one with the metaverse characters.
Right. And Glenn and I both we didn't really have as much to do with that. It was our management team is really creative, and they're always pushing the envelope, which I think is cool. It's a new opportunity to promote to a different crowd, a different audience than what we would normally have. Like, you know, we're older guys, been around the music business a long time. We're kind of set in our ways. I'm really grateful that we have a team of people that want to try new things. And so they thought Radiance would be the perfect song to kick off in that metaverse environment. And it's all I know is we play it live, and it's super fun to play live. It's a great riff. A great heavy riff turns into a nice melodic chorus, very hooky and heavy at the same time. So it's fun to play that. And Same with Shine On. And then later we just started playing Hypnotize, Face Your Fear and Hypnotize Yourself. And they're just simple songs that work easy live. I mean, I think there's going to be potentially there's another single coming at the end of the year, maybe something like that.
Everybody is going to have their favorites on here. And after you've released 4 tracks of an album, people might be sitting there thinking, yeah, well, maybe I've heard the best of it. But I think, actually, the best 2 tracks on there haven't been released, and maybe people haven't heard them yet. One is Roll On, and the other is Born to Fly, which is, I mean, this is going to make such an amazing live track. I mean, if you're going to do that live, it will be incredible.
Well, that song was initiated by David Lowy, and he had this riff, and it was kind of a interesting, like I want to say it's a quirky riff, and he said, you know, you can heavy it up, and it might be really cool. And I was like, yeah, let's make a demo of it and see what happens. And somewhere along the line, we got the chorus together, and I didn't really know what to play, so I just said, I like your part, what you're playing. Just play that 2 times, so it's like we can make the demo, so it's got 2 guitars, and I'll figure out something later to do. And we were just sitting there listening back to it, and it was really catchy. And then all of a sudden, it was like we got this melody, and somehow the lyric just jumped out. And I go, Dale, this is a song this could be about you. This is like, it's your song. This could be, you know. And so we presented that to Glenn. And like, so as I have mentioned before, maybe I mentioned it already today, you know, the beauty of Glenn's lyrics is they're so, you can put your own meaning on them, but they also have a literal meaning. And so Born to Fly is an example of that, where to David and myself, it's about a guy who's just born to fly planes, that he loves it. Everybody wants to fly. But Glenn goes way deeper and writes about the human condition of you've got to set your soul free, and we're born to be free, and it's only life that, you know, can hold us back.
It's an incredible song, and you do find yourself, you know, when you're listening to something and you're not listening in any particular order, you do gravitate back to that song because the riff is just, it's what was the old saying from the old A&R men, is an earworm. It's right in there.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple song, and catchy, good lyrics. It's a really good melody. I hope that one comes out. And Roll On, as you mentioned, is one of I think that's Glenn's favorite track on the album, and he was really concerned that it might not make the album. And I was like, Glenn, it's going on the album. I guarantee. I know it in my heart. That song, it just moves people, and I think it's a perfect closing track. Actually, you listen back to some stuff sometimes and you go, I wish we would have done this or spend a little more time on that. But all in all, the album as a whole, you get through it and you get to Roll On and listen to it, and it's like it's a cooling down period, and then you cool down and you're like in a really good feeling. Yeah. And then you go, all right, let's hear it again. Let's hear the whole album again. That's kind of what I discovered for me. So
you got bonus tracks as well. There's Let It Set You Free and the Healer. Are those primed to be added onto deluxe or special editions at later dates?
Exactly, yeah. And they're both really cool tracks. And I don't know if you knew, but we also did a cover of the Fleetwood Mac song "Oh Well."
Yeah.
And it's incredible. It's we put our touch on it, and Glenn sang the hell out of it. Glenn's not, he's not. His first inclination is he's not really excited about doing a cover of something, but and I totally understand it. We're trying to promote new music that we create, and but at the same time, I did love that song, and I loved a lot of different versions that people have done. Like, why not? Let's make it for a bonus thing or something that they can use for a.
Didn't Deep Purple just do that on that album full of covers that they did, Turning to Crime?
I'll have to check. I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe somebody told me that. The versions that we listened to there was a Tom Petty version that was really cool.
Yeah, that is a good version.
There's also oh man, I don't remember the band, but it's like the Rockets or something. That Ben Gross sent it to me. I don't remember who it is, but there's another band. Of course, there's a lot of versions of it, but this one band did a really cool. Oh, I know what it was. They did something different with the verses. They put some stabs like in the middle of the verses, and Ben really liked that, and so we copped that part for the verses.
Sounds good.
Again, Brian Tishy just slays on the track. It's the perfect feel.
So looking ahead then, what is the most important thing for the band? Is it to continue to produce new albums and new music, or is it the touring process and getting out and playing what you've actually produced? Because you've produced so much in such a short space of time that people haven't heard half of it live. Yeah.
We would like to, continue to promote all the albums, and I think that it's probably time for focusing on the live situation.
Yeah.
Because it's all a bit wonky with the whole, the COVID stuff, and it's. It's so weird because we were talking about Bristol. When we were in the UK last year, it was wide open. I thought, man, COVID's gone. It's over. I was like, and then the dreaded Omicron comes and kicks everybody's ass. But it does finally feel like I'm not going to say it's over. That would jinx it. I'm touching wood. I'm just going to say it's feeling like we're getting to a point where we were able to manage this thing a little bit, and we can. Now that the rush of all the bands that are still on the road or have been on the road, it's going to open up a little, and I think that we'd like to maybe take a little break next year for a bit, and then hit it hard,
Because your work schedule is outrageous when you look at what you've produced in such a short space of time, including the live albums, the EPs. The tours, etc., as well. And I did see Glenn talking about his future plans, and he's talking about after the tours you got booked, and he was mentioning that he's definitely going to do a Black Country Communion 5. So maybe that is the time, the end of next year, to sort of take a rest.
Maybe. I mean, I think there's probably going to be some ideas that come up, but I think that we're due for a little bit of a break at the beginning of 23, just so that we can, we've been out, we've been touring with the album will be out. It's like I said, it's a bit wonky that we were touring when the album wasn't out, but we are so excited to come to the UK and play these songs live for everybody. Yeah, and then I think we just need to kind of regroup and think about the future at that point. But yeah, I know that I had heard that Black Country wanted to do an album, and they were planning on doing an album, and so I think that's great.
So just before we conclude, I noticed that it's 20 years this year that you were with Ronnie James Dio, and of course that came up due to the fact that his biopic was released last week, Dreamers Never Die. And you had that spell on, what, 20 years ago with Killing the Dragon, which was a really underrated album at the time. And do you know what? I went back and revisited, had a listen this afternoon. You wrote a couple of the tracks on there. Along Came a Spider and Scream. Do you have good memories of that time?
Yeah, I have great memories of that time because I was joining a family. You know, it was like it. You know, being in Dio immediately, it was like I remember getting out of my car, going to the back of my truck and trying to grab my amplifier out and a guitar or a couple, and this big guy comes running up. Hey, what are you doing? Put that down. You're the guitar player. You're Doug Aldrich and Dio now. You don't carry. You're not going to carry the amp. And I was like, wow, that's really nice. You know, that was really nice of him. And it was just like immediately I was. Once you were welcomed into the family, you're in, and it was a great feeling. And being in the studio with Ronnie was incredible. It's been that long time, and a lot of water's gone under the bridge, but I still can see it just like it was yesterday. With Ronnie sitting there.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because you could have ended up with Dio on tour with Whitesnake before you actually joined Whitesnake.
Right. We were. You probably heard that story, but it was Jimmy Bain and I. We were on that tour, and you have to understand the timing. Well, you understand. People need to understand the timing of 2001, 2002. It was a perfect timing for classic rock to kind of come back, classic heavy metal, classic rock to come back, and it was like it had been years that I had thought about the Scorpions or Deep Purple, and then Dio, we've got this album. It's like, wow, this is really good, and it's getting good reviews, and it had decent reviews. I think in hindsight, like you said, it's a really good album. But then, we were on tour and playing sold out places, and we just didn't want it. It was like a 3-month run with those guys, and then we were going to go to Europe and go to the UK or do the US later on our own. But somewhere along the line during that first arena run, or not, excuse me, it was outdoor places. They call them sheds here. And so we were doing that, and manager from the Scorpions came and said to Ronnie, "Hey Ronnie, next year Whitesnake is reforming, and it's going to be John Sykes and David Coverdale, and we're going to do a tour with them, another co-headline. We'd love for you to open up or to support." And Ronnie was not really interested in doing that. Ronnie was like, "Okay, we've done this. It's been great, but we're going to go make a new record next year." That was kind of the plan. And then I got a call from David, and I said, "Well, you've got John Sykes. I'm playing lead guitar with Ronnie. He goes, no. Sykes is not gonna. We decided against working on it, which was a shame because Jimmy Bain and I were really excited about wow, Sykes is gonna come back, and that was really cool. But he goes, no, I've been looking at you, and I really think you're a snake, Douglas. And I was like, okay, let me talk to Ronnie about that and see what's up. And it was just Ronnie said, go 2 months, no problem. And 2 months turned into a lot longer. And I did, as you know, go back to Ronnie a few times.
Do you still have the demo of that unreleased song with Ronnie on it and him playing the bass around the time of Elektra? I read that somewhere.
I do have it, and I'm going to make a point. I've got a little time right now before the British tour. I'm going to make a point to go to visit Wendy and play her the song just so I can know for my peace of mind, did she ever hear it? Because I taught, when I did the, I don't know if you've seen the movie, that Dreamers Never Die, but...
No, it's not out here yet.
Okay. Well, it's got, a lot of Ronnie's colleagues and people that he worked with and friends talking, and so they made an arrangement to come film everybody, and it was for me, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I'm kind of freaking out about this whole thing, you know, to be honest with you. And these guys are coming in my house with, you know, 3 guys coming in my house with camera, and nobody's wearing masks yet. Now you're kind of, I don't know if you felt this way, but I was like, if I just see somebody, I might get sick. You know, I mean, I might get this thing and die. I got.
Yeah.
So I was really nervous about it. So my interview, I think, I did a lot of talking, and I talked about that song. In fact, I even played them that song. And so when I got to the premiere the other day, this guy comes up to me and goes, "Man, I saw all your outtake stuff, and it was so incredible. But when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh my God, I hope they don't use all that stuff, because everybody had a, you know, it was like everyone was super positive, and it was fun, and it was light." And I just remember that day, me kind of being freaked out and talking about, you know, Ronnie doing this song where it just felt really spooky. And fortunately, they didn't use any of that. They just put a little piece of me going, "Ronnie was so kick-ass," or something, you know, and then some pictures of us together. That was it. So I was grateful, but I do want to find out if Wendy ever heard this song, because it's really spooky. It puts shivers up your spine.